How's it going? I'm coming at you live, not live, recorded from the caves here in Springfield Underground. Figured I'd do this quick video. Right now there's a lot of talk about in the YouTubes and the Facebooks and all this stuff talking about there's this argument whether there should be a minimum rate per mile, whether brokers need to be capped at how much they can make on their profit margin, whether they should answer to their shady practices and all this stuff, right? Because right now the rates are very low and some of the brokers are asking for ridiculous rates. Rates that are unsustainable by most people's standards. But let's what is a freight broker? A freight broker, according to Wikipedia, is often used as part of logistics. It is freight transport over land in the United States by truck. This may be part of an overall ship broking, using a cargo broker, a freight forwarder, or third-party logistics broker, and even a fourth-party broker, when outsourcing is needed as opposed to in-house for freight transportation. The brokering can be single-mode or by multimodal transportation and can use specialized brokers on a permanent basis or as needed to ensure timely traffic management. A load may be posted on a truck load board by shippers, brokers, or agents. This may occur with special orders, brokers and or agents that do not have an established logistics base, or brokers and agents seeking a backhaul for a truck not in a high traffic lane. Many brokers specialize in certain freights, such as full truckload, less than truckload, auto, boat, yacht, bulk tanker, liquid or dry goods, oversized equipment hauling on lowboys, flatbed, drop deck, or any other mode of freight transportation with enough loads. The job of the broker is they don't just handle truck freight, they handle air freight, they handle ship freight. It is the go-between between carrier and driver, or carrier and customer. So what a lot of people don't realize, let's say you haul a load of bottled water to Walmart. It wasn't the water bottling plant that hired you, it was Walmart that hired the broker to move that load. There's a person inside, say a place like Walmart, where their job is to make sure that 200 loads of water are put to each distribution center in a certain area. So they're always going to go with the lowest rate. So they hire a company like C.H. Robinson, TQL, Coyote, any of these mega brokers, or they'll hire a carrier such as Stevens or Prime, somebody like that, to move their freight. Move those bottled waters. Mega carriers might be able to drop 10 trailers there. Or they might would rather go with, a brokering company like C.H. Robinson or something like that. Or maybe the carrier that they hire has a brokerage. So let's say a company like Prime comes in, Prime has their own brokerage. They come in and say, we'll move X amount of loads, and it doesn't have to be strictly on their trucks. They can broker the stuff that they don't want to cover or that they can't cover. So there's a whole bunch of wheels, moving parts in this machine. And what I firmly believe, and this is just my opinion, that to be able to run the spot market, it's only a small aspect of the trucking industry. And to have a weak business plan or high expenses in the spot market, there's greater risk. If 100% of your freight comes from calling brokers, then I can understand why you're upset right now. But the reality is that if that system doesn't work for you, then you probably need to figure out a different way, because that system's been in place for a long time. And I'll give you a good example. My father, who was an owner-operator in the mid-'80s, he would grab a load of produce and take it to Hunts Point, New York, out of either Arizona or California. And when he was up in Hunts Point, he would call his broker that he had a good relationship with to get him freight that usually came out of Boston off the ports. And it was toys going back to a toy distribution center there in Arizona. And that's primarily what he did. He had a relationship with two brokers that had this freight. Now, on occasion, those brokers would not have that freight. So he would have to go to the old school truck stop and look at the old dial-a-truck load board, write down on a notebook the phone numbers and these load numbers and everything, and call those brokers on the payphone. They had to agree to a rate, and I'm not sure how the paperwork was handled back then. Now we just, get an email, sign the rate con, you're good to go. So there was a lot of shady practices back then that, there weren't really a whole lot of things to really protect you back then. So you really had to kind of rely on the big brokerages, and also, there was a lot of trust back then that you had to deal with. And it's always been like that. It's more streamlined now, it's more digital now, but the reality is that system's been in place. Brokers are a necessity in our market if you're working the spot market. Now, there's talks of places that will be kind of like a mediator, like a load board where you post, where the shipper can post the load directly, and the website only charges a flat rate instead of a commission. And then the drivers can go to said load board and pick the load. And so the idea is that the driver gets more and the shipper pays less, which is essentially the goal that everybody wants. Until that system is placed, and essentially that website is basically acting as a broker, to be honest with you. Some brokers work off commission, other brokers work off a flat rate. And then, what a lot of people don't realize is that some shippers, and this happens with a lot of companies that make bricks, they will put out their list to 10 different brokers and say, here's the X amount of loads, and this is all that we're paying to move this. So that's where you see like 5 of different brokers posting the same load on the DAP board, and the rates are the same regardless of who you're talking to. A lot of that happens. And to run the spot market, you got to deal with all these different dynamics, and you're basically acting as a salesperson for your carrier, and you got to prove to the broker why they should give you the load at the rate that you want versus the guy next to you that's also calling on the same load. There's a lot of differences in play. If the guy next to me has got a beautiful 389 and his cost per mile is $1.60 a mile, and I can haul the same exact load, same exact everything for $1.20, that gives me an advantage over that guy. And there are brokers that look for that. They look for the lowest bidder. Not that I would do that, but I try to get as much as I possibly can, even though my costs are low. But because my costs are low, I don't have to move every single day. I don't have to be desperate to move. And it's out of desperation that people take these low rates. Right now, truck to load ratio is pretty bad. There's too many trucks for each load. A lot of places are shut down, if not at least at a slowdown, because of COVID world. And right now there's just not a whole lot of freight. That's how this business goes. This is more than just your typical February slowdown. It is essentially a depression that we're leading into, if not a major recession. And it's going to take a lot of companies out. So if your business model is 100% based off the spot market, you're probably feeling some pain right now. And my advice is instead of looking for the government to step in and intervene on what can we do for with the brokers or against the brokers, instead of that us versus them mentality, try to establish some relationships, because eventually the freight's going to turn around. Eventually capacity is going to be in the truck's favor. And when that happens, the brokers are going to get asked for a lot more money than they have been. And we'll almost be able to name our price. And so a lot of brokers and also a lot of shippers will be looking for direct carriers to haul their freight at a set rate per mile. And if you're not too greedy, that's the time to negotiate that, because once you negotiate that, then that locks you in on a price. So when freight comes back down, and it will go back down, you'll be sitting pretty. I know several people that follow this philosophy. I know several people that only run from one or two brokers for the majority of their freight, and they've been just fine through this epidemic. And essentially, the bottom line is this, and this is a comment that really annoys and ticks off a lot of people. If you don't like the game, you don't play. If you don't hear football players complaining about being tackled. You don't hear baseball players complaining about how fast the ball is going when it's pitched to them. It's a necessary part of the game, and brokers are just a small aspect of it. There are many, many ways to make money, even as you own your truck, that don't deal with brokers, that don't deal with the headache of calling on load boards every single day and trying to get that money. You can essentially compare the spot market to the stock market. You have your low risk stocks that make you steady money, and then you have your high risk stocks. One day you're banking a lot of money, and the next day you're going to lose it all. And that's how the spot market is. That's how it works. And what a lot of people are figuring out right now is that the foundation that you're laid your business on is kind of shaky, and the broker's asking for, the broker's not putting a good rate on a lot of these loads is really affecting a lot of people's bottom line, and that's to be understood. Am I saying that it's right to ask a driver to move, an owner operator to move a load for 80 cents a mile? Absolutely not. And we don't know what their profit margins are. The people that want transparency, okay, what if you got that transparency? Would that improve the situation? Would that help you with your business now? Is going to the White House and asking for help from the government, is that going to help you right now? If you want to ask for the stimulus package, that's a different story. A lot of trucking companies and drivers got passed up on the stimulus package. So I understand going to the White House for that. But as far as wanting to change the broker, driver, carrier situation, eventually, what would that help? I don't know. But right now, it's not going to help you. So you have to adapt and overcome of the situation here that we're in now. And if some people have parked their trucks, some people are running at a loss and hoping that it comes back up, and some people are just scraping by and not going home. And are we at more risk because of the corona? Yes, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that are putting at risk that are not making extra money either. And so trying to get the public's sympathy that we're not making enough money, it's just not a good idea, because there's 30 million people that are unemployed right now, and probably half of them may or may not get their jobs back. So the whole country's hurting right now. The whole world is hurting, to be honest with you. And so to focus on just how the brokers are screwing us, I think that's a blind way to look at things. And you have to adapt and overcome now. And if that means parking your truck and working as a company guy, so be it. If that means switching to a mega carrier because they have the freight, so be it. If that means you're going to do power only for, I don't know, Tractor Supply or a store like that, so be it. A lot of these mega carriers have power only options where you can still keep your authority or still be signed on to the company, and you can do that. Have plans B, C, and D, and E lined up, and get your costs down as much as you possibly can. If your truck payment is $3,500 a month, see if you can't try to get something that puts you in at $2,000 a month. There are different strategies to try to control your costs, because in the end, whether a broker's making 20% or 80% of whatever the shipper's paying them, doesn't matter. If they don't want to give up the money, they're not going to give it up. If they're in survival mode and they're worried about their future, they are definitely not going to give up that money. If the load sits, somebody else will just take it from another broker. So this will probably annoy a few people, but the argument's been the same over and over and over. There's a lot of digital noise about that, and I thought I'd throw my 2 cents that's not in a live feed where you have to listen to me ramble on for an hour and a half reading comments that are off topic. So with that being said, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, hit the thumbs up. If you like this, and leave a comment below what your strategies are and what your thoughts are on this. I'm pretty sure there'll be a whole list of comments. And and be sure to follow me on all the social media outlets at Snorelord. And keep your chin up. We'll make it. We're gonna make it. We're gonna be okay. Because right now the only thing you can control is how you react to things, and that's the reality of it. So with that being said, thanks for watching.